teachers who regularly get invited to high school reunions, what are the most amazing transformations, common patterns, epic stories, saddest declines etc. you've seen through the years? In high school I was pretty good friends with a guy that was a bit overweight. About 6 feet 4 inches, really smart and a bit nerdy. Lost track of him after high school but saw him at our 10-year reunion. He was the talk of the reunion. Still tall, lost all the weight and was in great shape, had long hair like Fabio and was a doctor. He showed up with a beautiful wife. He gave us his contact info and invited us to Atlanta to stay with him in his huge house. After the reunion I tried to get in touch. Contact info didn't work, and through some sleuthing I found out he was neither married nor a doctor. He was still in good shape, can't fake that, but faked everything else. Going to post my mom's story because she doesn't have an account. She was a home economics teacher and specifically she had one class called Relationship Psychology where every day to start the class she would read through the cheesy Dear Abby newspaper advice column to talk with the class on how they would respond to the problem. One day ahead of class she noticed that a letter published talked about a kid who sounded a lot like a student in her class and was located in our hometown. They always end a letter with a name and city and my mom was always very involved with her students and their personal lives. The letter talked about a kid who was terrified of going to college and how he got rejected from all the schools he wanted to go to, had no self-confidence, abusive father, money problems, that he would lose all his close friends, couldn't stand the idea of leaving his disabled mother, and that he felt enormous pressure as a first-gen college student and had ultimately decided not to go to college at all. She read it to the class and they discussed and she could tell the boy in her class was very uncomfortable. After class she asked him about it and it was in fact a letter written by him. He never thought it would get published and responded to by the Dear Abby column and was super embarrassed. He, like most students, never even knew what the Dear Abby column was until they took her class. Afterward she talked through everything with him and talked with his mother and evaluated his options on how best to approach college. She taught him finances, loans, scholarship options, his mom's condition, and everything and got him to a place where he felt better about his future. 4 years later the kid ended up being the speaker at his college graduation of over 7,000 kids, met his wife at college, all of his groomsmen, and got a killer job through his career fair on campus before graduating. She flew out and attended as he invited her. Was always blown away by that. A previous student of mine grew up in a horrible home situation. This individual was really smart and I did my best to help them apply, receive many scholarships and grants, and eventually went to an Ivy League school to get away from their abusive home life. They made it big and I mean big, big-time millionaire. Made their family jealous but in the end their hard work paid off. It was great to see and I was so proud of what they'd become. Edit. The best thing was seeing them break the chain. The family had problems going back numerous generations and to see this generation change was all worth it. Edit 2. Wow, you guys are all so nice. Honestly, I wasn't trying to be a hero or anything, just felt like I was put in a place where I could really help someone and the outcome was phenomenal for this individual. Just so you all know, this person recently applied for a part-time teaching job at a public, inner-city school in order to mentor others from similar backgrounds. I guess karma finds a way, right? Cheers. Not a teacher, but I went to my 10-year reunion. Back in high school we had a kid who has Asperger's and was a little weird. He was, however, amazing at the yo-yo, having picked one up during middle school when we had that yo-yo trick assembly. After everyone else had stopped walking the dog in 8th grade, this guy was doing more and more elaborate tricks every day during lunch. He was bullied and teased but he continued doing what he loved. So, at our 10-year reunion, people from every strata of high school popularity was there, including this guy. He was his same old self, but more confident. I asked him if he still yo-yos, and he busted out his custom-made titanium yo-yo that he said he made on a CNC lathe. He then starts to do some tricks and a large crowd gathered around. It was quite the show. He had gotten very good. When he finished, people clapped and cheered, And even the jockiest dudes from back in the day fist bumped him and told him how badass he was. The most amazing transformation was everyone else. Nobody teased him for being who he was anymore, they now admired him for being so passionate about something. Used to have this one kid in my art class in senior high who treated it like one of those easy-to-pass classes. He was a big guy, much bigger than the other students, and he'd use his size and strength to bully other kids. The smaller ones, he was a little bitch underneath it all. He would draw guns and crosses in his art book with pseudo-gangster sayings like live by the gun, die by the gun, and fuck the police. You get the idea. Come reunion time, which was some 5 years later, he's found a girl who really reined him in and, kind of like a hunter taming a wolf, really turned him into a good man. They had a baby boy, and he's a responsible father and does yoga on the rocks by the beach. Complete 180. I do think he was a good guy underneath it all, he just needed direction from someone who could break down his walls. Not a teacher, but I went to my 20th about 5 years ago. The woman organizing the event was in my class since 3rd grade, and was always bright, intelligent, charming and pretty. She was very active in high school and by all counts had a very bright future. Speaking to her at the reunion, it seemed that had happened for her. We talked about her self-help, life coaching company and how they are growing and doing great. I asked her to send me more information when I got home, which is on the other side of the country. I got an email from her introducing me to her West Coast partner whose email was from the URL spresangels.com, which I thought sounded very contrary to what I was expecting. A quick look at their website had me immediately worried, and a short Google later I saw that they are an offshoot of the Nksivm cult that has been all over the news. The woman I was talking to, that I knew since age 8, was Lauren Salzman, who just this week pleaded guilty to holding 2 sex slaves locked in a room for 2 years. She was trying to recruit me and basically everyone at the reunion into Nksivm. I noped right out of that email conversation and have been watching everything unfold for the last 5 years. They are all looking at some serious jail time now. A former student of mine grew up in an ultra-conservative Christian home. He and his siblings were never allowed to socialize with other students during lunch and recess. Whenever they had free time at school they had to read their Bibles. In science class they were forbidden to learn about evolution. Every essay, short story, personal narrative, and poem he wrote for me involved some kind of Christian theme. When he graduated, he immediately enrolled in a big seminary in our area, and it was the last I heard of him until his class invited me to their 10-year reunion. This same kid showed up with sleeve tattoos, piercings everywhere, slamming beer after beer after beer and smoking like a locomotive. When I asked what he was doing now, he responded he currently was a bouncer at a strip club. One kid grew up to be that guy, treading the line between jolly neckbeard and somewhat scary incel. I saw him after a full 12 years had passed. The worst part is, he was one of the most popular and socially adjusted kids in school. Always invited to parties, girls always trying to spend time with him. He'd always get away with absurd things in school because even the teachers liked him. He was just really funny and naturally charismatic. Not to mention fit and handsome. However, he was strictly religious, so he never had sex with any girls. A few years after graduation, he became an atheist, or just agnostic. But by this time he had a dead-end job at a supermarket, had gained weight and was obsessed with Dragon Ball Z because he related to unleashing his true power. So he spent like 5 years desperately messaging girls from HS, trying to say hey I can have sex now, but he was just not that attractive anymore and his social skills had deteriorated tremendously. He was rejected by every single girl that was pining over him just a few years ago, in high school. He ended up publicly coming out as a proud incel 2 years before the reunion, in a post where he declared war on women and socially adjusted men. He often posted about being a virgin and how Christianity basically made him an incel because he missed out every chance for sex he ever had. So at the reunion, he came wearing a white t-shirt with the words "fuck you." He'd walk up to now married women that he had previously solicited and just smirked silently, waiting for them to read the shirt. He was thrown out by the venue after about 40 minutes since so many people complained of his creepy behavior. So, not a school reunion story, but I thought I'd input a happy story since a lot of these are a bit depressing. My mom used to be a teacher for children with severe learning disabilities. By severe, I mean the majority of students she taught could barely do anything for themselves. Now she's retired, but one day we were in a supermarket when a lady comes up to my mom and hugs her. She seems a bit surprised at first and asks if they know each other, and it turns out she used to be in her class. We get in the car and mom instantly breaks down in tears. After a few minutes she explains to me that 20 years ago, that lady had been unable to speak, walk or even go to the bathroom by herself. And yet there she was, out on her own, talking to us and doing her own grocery shopping. What probably made my mom cry was that after so long and accomplishing so much, this girl actually remembered her old teacher. Not the teacher, and not the full school reunion either. I'm not sure if those even still happen since Facebook is a thing. But a group I hung out with of nerds like me in high school wanted to get back together and play deathmatch Quake, LAN party style like we did as kids. I'm effectively a loser with no social life and I'm scared of people, but this I thought I could handle, so I went. They asked me to pick up Joe on the way to the party. And I do. Joe was out of shape when we were kids, like a pudgy kid. That was all that was really wrong with him. He was smart, well-kept, and rich as fuck, like Dad owned a restaurant franchise rich. Not like one of the locations, like the entire company. We always had the parties at his house. We didn't bring our own computers, cause he just had basically a lab we all played at. So I was a bit curious why we weren't repeating something like that. Not that I cared, I have my own lab, not rich though, so we could have all had a computer. But we went to another dude's house, and who cares, everyone brings a laptop now anyhow. Anyways, pick up Joe from a really sketchy looking house. Really surprised. Dude comes out of the place really big and really dirty looking. Clothes were dirty and tattered. Looked like he had dirt in his greasy hair, and he had to be 300 or 350 pounds. He was big. Hardly fit in my car. Almost immediately he tells me his dad died. Then he ran the company into the ground, gambled away most of the money, invested it in stupid things, etc. And basically he tells me inside of a car ride how he blew something ridiculous like $100 million bucks. Whole thing made me sick and sad.